Me and my friend won a game of duo squads in Fortnite with nearly 20 eliminations, and today I'll be showing you how to do so too by walking through this incredible game that we played. On top of this, on the channel I do show you how to win in Fortnite, get better at it quickly and improve at also the Fortnite things, so be sure to subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss out on anything and help me get to my goal of 30,000 subscribers. Honestly, that would help me out a ton. Alright, so this video is kind of inspired by Cypher PK's educational commentary series. I've been playing a lot of Fortnite recently with my friends. We've had quite a few decent games, and I thought it'd be cool to walk you through one of them and show you what we did to win. Also, be sure to stick around till the end of the video because it really helps the channel out more than you could possibly know, and the end of this game is actually really insane. Now, before even heading into a game, the odds were in fact in our favor. As mentioned, I was playing a game of duo squads with my friend, a mobile player named Kiki, but I know what you're thinking. I'm a PC player in a squads game with a mobile player, outnumbered 2 to 1 by most teams. How on earth are the odds in our favor? Well, according to my research, and when I say that, I mean about 2 minutes I spent on Google, skill-based matchmaking does not exist in squads games, meaning regardless of how well we do in a game, we will always be matched up against the same players. On top of that, because we are on different devices, we are matched up against mixed servers consisting of mostly casual players on different devices, some teams that aren't even full, and some duos doing the same thing that we are. On top of this, from my experience in servers like these, up to a quarter of the players, likely even more, tend to be bots, giving us a few free eliminations along the way. So this, combined with the fact that, at least in my opinion, myself and my friend are rather confident players, going into this game, we had a decent shot at winning. So going into the game, Kiki and I decided to land at Lazy Lake because it was the first major name location that the bus flew over. Therefore, it'd be safe to say that at least a few squads were going to be heading there. In games like this, I usually prefer to land at a hot drop in the early game, as it's easiest to defeat teams that have more players than you. That is, of course, if you know how to work angles, player rotations, and RNG of the locations. Anyway, I actually ended up on getting a nearly perfect drop, being the first player to hit the ground in the game by waiting until the bus is nearly flying over Lazy Lake and skydiving to the lowest ground that I could find below me. Because I could not reach the chest at the top of the house, I instead entered through the balcony of it, grabbed a green pump shotgun laying on the ground, along with a blue pistol and some materials that were sitting in a chest. After hearing audibly and visually, wait, you can't hear something visually, I don't know, I just like using the visual hearing feature in my game, as it makes finding what direction players are in a whole lot easier. If you're not using it, I highly recommend that you do use this feature. It is incredibly overpowered. Anyway, back to what I was saying, I knew the guy above me would grab the roof chest that I missed, so I pushed up to the roof and easily shotgunned him to death. Now, while I put on this big pot that he was carrying, I just want to point out that it was good I was able to kill him, and that Kiki was also fine in her house, because by landing at 2 different houses, we were playing a bit more of an aggressive strategy, and easily a full team could land at both of the 2 houses that we are in. That actually happened a few games after this one, and surprisingly managed to both defeat those teams, earning 10 eliminations on mostly players, not bots, within the first few minutes of the game. But because we ended up on choking after rotating out of the agency, that game never became anything too special though. Anyway, since I had a shotgun, along with 50 shield, I knew I had an advantage in that game, considering most players just recently landed a few seconds ago. So I rotated over to the tallest building in the center of Lazy Lake, where players almost always land, while Kiki stayed behind to get more loot, as she was yet to find any decent weapons or any shield. Looking back, this was a pretty risky move, as I ended up on running into a few decent players in that building. If I wasn't in a lobby without skill-based matchmaking, or simply were not as confident with my skills as a player, I wouldn't have gone in there alone, but instead would have just waited for a minute for Kiki to get some more decent weapons. So I started trying to pursue the nearest sounding player down, which ended up on being a Supreme Specialist. However, though, I was unable to tell if she was below or above me. Sadly, that is the one thing that you cannot tell using the visual hearing feature. Now, after finding a blue tactical shotgun, I did discover that she was behind me because she, shot at me. However, thankfully she did miss, giving me the opportunity to try and flank her through the stairs. But after she reacted by placing a wall, it became a standoff between me and her. I quickly realized that she was likely stalling for her teammates, and after realizing that she was probably good enough to edit through if I tried to replace the wall, I decided that I had no choice but to SMG her. Yes, this was fairly risky, as she had the opportunity to shoot at me twice with her shotgun before I took my first shot, but it ended up on working out heavily in my favor. After realizing that after all her teammates were a little ways away, I decided to shake her down. After thirsting her, I saw her nearest teammate, a soccer skin, was on the roof after what sounded like transporting there via crash pad. So after a quick encounter with her, she ended up on placing a wall, which would give her a huge advantage if I were to try and push to her through the stairwell. So instead, I decided to drop down and place a floor above me, further separating the two of us, while I reloaded the remaining few shells into my shotgun and thought about what to do. Luckily, I did notice that I could still see where she was through the floor due to the shakedown it did on our teammate. Better yet, she did not realize that. So I managed to push her through the window and catch her off guard, allowing me to eliminate her without taking any damage, which of course was pretty important because as you can see I was pretty low on shield. Though after, you could see/hear another player pushing, but thankfully Kiki was there to assist. Though sadly it was merely a bot, so I easily eliminated her and shook her down, though unfortunately I was unable to find any of her teammates. After searching for a minute to find more shield, me and Kiki ran into another bot, and I, let's just say, was unable to hit him very well. Though thankfully, Kiki had a medkit for me. Obviously we shook him down, found his teammates, I then eliminated one of them, shook her down, continued to push their teammates. There were surprisingly 3 more bots who seemed to be fighting, who we lazily killed. Honestly, I could have done a much better job. I was a little reckless, but at the end of the day, it didn't really matter, as they were just bots after all. But maybe not this guy. I don't know, it doesn't really look like a bot name to me. But nonetheless, when playing, it's always safe to be careful, because you never know who actually is a bot, and who is just, let's say, not the best player at the game. So me and Kiki, or Kiki and I don't know how to do grammar, rotated over to the agency, because after looking at the storm circle on the map, using rotations to think of where people were, of course for a guide on that, click the iCard up here, it seemed that there would be a fair amount of players there. Oh, who am I kidding? The agency always has a bunch of players there. Anyway, so looking back, I'm kind of embarrassed since we could have just easily swam through this river on our right, as Kiki pointed out a few games later, but everything did end up on working in our favor, considering I found a harpoon gun, which I did use down at the bottom of the river to find a slurfish. That, paired with the 2 minis that it turned out Kiki was holding, allowed me to get to full shield. So when we arrived at the agency, the first thing I did was disguise myself as a henchman with the hopes of blending in. But with my lack of intelligence, I started shooting at a chopper right after leaving the telephone booth, almost immediately losing my disguise after it landed. But going back, whenever I see a chopper, I will shoot at it, regardless of how bad in a position that I am in. And in the past, in other video games like Warzone, it has gotten me in some trouble with my team. But this is Fortnite, and most of the time, when a chopper doesn't just flee, I and whoever I'm playing with are able to kill the team in the chopper, and if we are lucky, steal the chopper for ourselves, allowing for us to fly around the map to get even more eliminations. Anyway, thankfully the team, which turned out to be a duo in this chopper, were pretty cool, so they decided to give us a chance to fight. But that turned out to be a huge mistake. So with us and the opposing team hiding behind cover, it was clear that we were in a long-range battle. Though neither myself or Kiki were carrying nor even ran into a sniper rifle in this round, so clearly we were at a bit of a disadvantage. Though being myself, I couldn't help but shoot at the opponents, who were just sitting out in the open, begging to be shot at. Honestly, it was a miracle none of us were sniped by some third party during this fight. Anyway, to avoid being tagged by the opposing players, I intentionally hid myself behind a ramp in a position that allowed me to quickly and easily crouch and uncrouch between shots to avoid being exposed for extended periods of time. The purple AUG is the perfect weapon to do something like this with due to the little bloom that it has, its quick first shot accuracy reset time, and its ability to shoot 3 bullets at once. This strategy was clearly effective as we managed to break the shield of both the opposing players, nearly killing them while not even being hit once. Of course, it was clear they were trying to get away, so after we took advantage of their compromised position to reduce their health even more, we decided it would be a good idea to push them. And because they had sniper rifles, I personally thought throwing decoy grenades would help stall until we ourselves could swim over there, but this only proved to be a waste of time though, as the decoys were distracted by the henchmen and the opposing team launch padded out by the time that we crossed the lake. Thankfully they did leave their chopper though, so then we spent the following minute or so flying around to look for them while also scouting out for other players to fight. Considering they escaped via launch pad, we knew they couldn't have made it very far. After way too long, we eventually pinpointed their location to the Crackshot cabin, which honestly really wasn't too far from where we thought. We shouldn't have taken that long to find them. This began the second battle of our ongoing war of the team. Now this battle began with another long-range fight, taking place this time from the passenger seat of the chopper that Kiki was flying. Honestly, pushing this fight with the chopper like this was probably not the best idea, as it left us exposed. But despite this, I fortunately hit one of the enemies for 64 damage in the head, breaking his shield once again, while I only took 59 damage for myself. Just 10 off, come on, 10 off. Anyway, so after jumping out of the chopper, I pushed towards the guy I weakened, while placing walls to protect both of the ramps and myself. I easily took high ground and managed to knock the guy with my shotgun while he was pushing up. Then, after getting knocked down from my build by his teammate, I entered a shotgun fight with him. This fight nearly ended in disaster, as I missed a shot with a shotgun, and then was unable to finish her off with my SMG. But thankfully, Kiki was right behind me. She distracted the opponent and finished her off while I was reloading in a box. Even though eliminating that duo took a very long time, it was well worth it, as I proved to have many useful items, including Midas's drum gun and a golden sniper. Those weapons, along with my pump shotgun, are very useful to have in games of squads, simply because they can quickly eliminate a player. So whenever in a game like this, I will almost always carry a sniper rifle because it contains the ability to eliminate a player in only one shot. This feature proves really useful in situations where I'm outnumbered, simply because I can reduce the amount of players from a range before the fight even starts. The pump shotgun is just the same, only for close range, as it has the ability to one-shot the player. And then of course, the drum gun is always very useful for finishing down a player who I've already tagged in a very hasty and efficient manner, as its DPS is simply insane. So after looting their dead bodies, that came out wrong. We grab a chopper and make our way over towards Lazy Lake, since it's the only named location that remained in the storm circle. Over there we saw a duo by the reboot van, so we took a steady position on the natural high ground of one of the buildings. After trying to shoot at them a bit, we realized that they are trying to reboot their teammates, and considering how exposed they are, the fact that we had high ground, I thought that eliminating them would be a bit too easy, and that we should give them a minute to reboot their teammates so we get a few extra kills. But sadly they didn't leave us alone, and honestly they were so exposed, they seemed like free kills practically, so I couldn't help but trying to eliminate them. However, I completely butchered this snipe that you can see, so just resorted to using my drum gun to weaken them down a fair amount. Honestly, I could have done a better job here, but the important thing is, we still kept the advantage. At this part I noticed on my screen that we were being pushed from another angle, possibly by a teammate of theirs, and out of fear of being shot from behind, I headed over to take care of it, and made the mistake of giving up my high ground. Now while I probably should have used a shotgun instead of the drum gun, and while I should have been a bit more careful of the other players still shooting at us, I still managed to take care of the player, who turned out to be a bot. It probably would have been best for the opposing players to push high ground at this point, instead of just mildly chip away at my health, but regardless, Kiki ended up on knocking one of the players, allowing me to laser down his teammate. And because he was so weak, I just recklessly pushed the remaining player and eliminated him. I probably should have been a bit more careful, but clearly, the guy was under a lot of pressure from Kiki and I spraying at him, making him a relatively simple finish. So after that, they went down to only 4 players remaining, and we knew at that time that it would either be a 2v2 or a 2v1v1. Either way, we were not outnumbered. So we made our way over to what was left of the chopper, and using my amazing pro gamer skills, I crashed and blew up the chopper. Yeah, it really wasn't my best moment. Thankfully though, we had minis, allowing us to get to an okay position, health and shield wise. Honestly, looking back, this little mishap with the chopper could have been really bad, as the final fight actually came down really close health wise. I was grateful that the chopper didn't do more damage. Anyway, on our way to the storm circle, we did in fact pass a pond with some fish in it, so I tried to use the explosive weapon that is found in the motorboat to find a flopper or a slurpfish if I were lucky. However though, I only managed to find a few small fries. Regardless, we continued to make our way into the storm circle and up a mountain with the hopes that we may have high ground against our opponents. After Kiki spotted them at a nearby house, I attempted to crash pad up the neighboring hill, but kinda failed, dramatically. Once I made it back, I started to build up on a hill to our right, but was sadly met by one of the players slightly above me, building in my direction. After stumbling a bit on my building, I quickly recovered and managed to take high ground. At this point, I see him pushing upwards and hope to hit him in the head with my shotgun as he pushed up, but instead missed, causing me to take hefty amounts of damage. In panic, I built around me to recover. In hindsight, I probably should have placed a ramp above him and edited through. In the moment, I avoided doing this because I wanted to take advantage of knowing where he would be to land a headshot on him. But because this failed, it would have been safer to just place a ramp instead. Anyway, after my recovery, he pushed back in a similar fashion again. This time I actually hit my shot, though also took some more damage, causing me to find myself at only 20 health, so I built a box around me so I'd have some time to drink my minis. I found that whenever in a build fight, or really any fight that is, if you are in a situation that you are not comfortable with, just build a box around you. This gives you a relatively safe area to sit in, and forces for your opponents to push you. At this point, you can either edit through the wall to push them, or if you don't want, hold down place on the wall that they're trying to break. If you do get a wall, or just want to flee, you can just place a ramp and edit out of the side. Anyway, after doing this, and choking again, I am hit in the head by my opponent, putting me down onto a lone 3 health. At this time, Kiki actually told me that she eliminated the other player, and knowing that I broke his shield, and that he never healed up, it was clear that we had the advantage in the fight, even if I was only at 3 health. So while I could hypothetically afford to lose this build fight, I really didn't want to take any chances. So I built another box around myself to heal up, and while that was happening, the final player went to break one of the walls, and because I didn't have enough time to place a new one, I instead just shot him and won the game. Of course, on top of all of this, on the channel I do show you how to get better at Fortnite quickly, and improve at all sorts of Fortnite things, so be sure to subscribe with notifications on, to help us get to 30,000 subscribers by clicking here. And for another video, you can click this card right here if you want to learn how to get better at Fortnite insanely quickly, so you can further better the odds of doing something just like this yourself. Finally, to support me, you can use code StormRanger and buy my merchandise by clicking here. But that is all I have for now, and thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all later. Goodbye.